This section is an introduction to LLCs. First, what is an LLC? LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. Let's break that down. Limited liability means your exposure, your risk of a lawsuit or having to pay somebody for damages from a problem in the business is limited. It's reduced. Now, it's not eliminated entirely. It's just reduced. And I'll give you an example here. Let's say you're the owner of a Burger King, and you are walking around pouring coffee for customers, welcoming them to your restaurant. And then you accidentally pour hot coffee on a baby, leading the baby to have to go to the emergency room, have skin grafted, and there are permanent injuries. Now you have damage caused to a baby by your actions in the business. So, who's liable to pay for those medical expenses? Let's assume it was negligence. Well, we'll start out. First off, the baby's family could sue the restaurant. That's a given. They were at the restaurant, and somebody who worked at the restaurant made a mistake. You, in that case, were the agent of the restaurant. You were working at the restaurant at the time and you made a mistake. So the restaurant is liable. You, as the agent or employee of the restaurant, were the one who actually poured the coffee and made the mistake. So you are personally liable as well as the restaurant, at least in most states and most circumstances. But would you be liable as the owner? Well, if you have an LLC or a corporation, the answer is no. So, to better understand that, I'll give you a little different example. Let's say you hired a server at the restaurant who is walking around pouring coffee. And let's say she accidentally poured coffee on the baby's injured, and now there's a lawsuit. Who is liable here? Well, clearly the restaurant is liable. And then also, you would very likely have a lawsuit against the individual server, again, like the last analogy. However, you as the owner, in this scenario, weren't the coffee pourer, so you're not responsible for the actions of the coffee pourer. The restaurant and all of its assets are exposed to a lawsuit, but not you personally. Your liability is limited. Hear that? Limited liability? Your liability is limited to that which you've invested in the business. You might lose the whole business in the lawsuit, but you're generally not personally liable. Now, there are some exceptions to this, like if you're commingling funds, or if there's some fraud, or if you fail to follow some formalities. We're not going to get into that in this video. I just wanted you to generally understand what is a limited liability company. Now, how is it different from a corporation? A number of ways. We're not going to get into all of them, but the simple version is that a limited liability company is much less formal than a corporation. It was designed to be similar to a sole proprietorship, and that allows you to have a lot of informalities, a lot of flexibility, but still achieve some limited liability. Now, is an LLC right for you? I don't know. That typically involves an attorney looking at your circumstances, and you can check out different courses that talk about the differences. I've done some of those myself. What's the difference, for example, between an LLC and an S Corp, or an LLC and a corporation, or perhaps a partnership or sole proprietorship? Now, partnership and sole proprietorship, that's simple. They don't have limited liability. But S Corps and C Corps, which are both types of corporations, have limited liability, just like an LLC. Figuring out the right one for you involves analyzing a number of factors which are beyond the scope of this course here. All right, So what do we need to do to start an LLC? The big thing is file articles of organization. In a corporation, you'd call those articles of incorporation. However, in an LLC, they're called articles of organization. It's simply a document that gets filed with the state government, and once accepted, that creates or births your limited liability company. Now, let's transition to section 2, where we're going to focus on